Hello my little bouncing baby nieces and nephews, your kooky Uncle Otter is back, but instead of spreading misinformation on Facebook about Bill Gates using 5G to microchip your urethra, I've got a brand new Grim Dawn video for you. But make no mistake, this is not a build video. It's better. Maybe. The goal of this video is to highlight an archetype and all the tools it brings to the table, as well as important gear sets and devotions, so you can have the building blocks to create your own build with the powerful and flexible Vitality Bleed Conjurer. Myself and many other players consider the Bleed Vitality Conjurer to be the very best beginner build, and the reasons are plentiful. Devouring Swarm is bar none the best leveling skill in the game. It's got huge AoE damage, health sustain, and resistance reduction all available from level 1. The build is also incredibly forgiving to play, even in Elite and Ultimate, due to the plethora of sustain from the aforementioned Devouring Swarm, Wendigo Totem, and Sigil of Consumption. Finally, Shaman and Occultist play off each other exceptionally well, shoring up each other's weaknesses while bolstering their strengths. Occultist has two of the strongest offensive tools in the game in the form of Blood of Dreeg and Possession, but little to no health scaling, whereas Shaman brings a massive 30% health boost to the table. Additionally, both builds have a massive double-sided resistance shred available in their respective kits. As far as late game item sets, there are three I want to talk about, starting with the Dark Ones set. This set is incredible for one reason and one reason alone, and that is the 4-set bonus, the Dark Ones Gift. This is a that restores a chunk of missing HP and buffs you with a decent amount of vitality damage and a 10% damage absorption, which makes you much tankier. This ability is a 5-second cooldown with a 10-second duration, so as long as you're in the thick of it, this is a permanent buff. This set also comes with the added benefit of increasing your Wendigo Totem summon limit by 1 and making it and Bloody Pox cut enemies' damage dealing capabilities down to size. All in all, the Dark One set is ideal for the player that wants to feel invincible and doesn't mind giving up the ability to dish out bleeding damage. The next set is a decent all-around performer for the more traditional Vitality and Bleed Conjurer build, Valgur's Hunger. While not a particularly exciting set, it trends toward decent and strong. Increased emphasis and summon limit to Storm Totem means Valgur's iterations of this build tend to deal a bit more sustained single target damage than others. A complete fire to Vitality conversion to Sigil Consumption and a boost to its healing makes it a bit punchier as well. Valgur's Gloves also has a powerful proc that will layer on even more damage and sustain, but only up to 3 targets, further emphasizing the ability to deal with single targets more directly. Experiment with this set if you want to trade survivability for damage. Last but certainly not least is the mythical Wildblood set. This set is very interesting as it is only 3 pieces including the 2-handed weapon. The interesting thing about the Wildblood set is that it takes a middling skill in the form of Grasping Vines and gives it a ton of power in the form of base damage, weapon damage scaling, and a full conversion of its physical damage to vitality damage. But the real power lies in its malleability. You can choose to forego the 4-set bonus of the Dark One set and instead take the still powerful but less flashy 3-set, or you can take the Valgur's Helmet and the bonus flat damage to Storm Totem, and Valgur's Gloves for the powerful proc, and still get the 2-set bonus damage. The world is your oyster, so experiment and see what works best as far as mishing and matching these sets together. Depending on what role you need it to play, there are several great devotions depending on your final goals for the build. For devotions that layer in additional damage, Bat works incredibly well for either Vitality or Bleed-based builds and synergizes perfectly with almost all of our damage dealing abilities. If you're going the Vitality-based path, Wendigo has a strong flat Vitality damage proc with a massive damage converted to health modifier and several great nodes that increase your tankiness. For the Bleed path, Falcon is a great early constellation that fills a similar role to Bat but does even more damage over time at the cost of sustain. Your options are limited as far as percent resistance reduction is concerned. However, Ratash the Veil Warden shreds percent vitality resistance and life lead resistance, making him a must-have for any build that deals primarily vitality damage. And if you aim to follow the bleed path, Huntress is your best bet, shredding up to 35% bleeding resistance as well as 135 offensive ability. For flat resistance reduction, pick one of these 2 options. Revenant is very strong, as the skeletons scale with your vitality damage and all the nodes scale your defensive stats, making this devotion incredibly efficient, and it can't be ignored that this devotion will always be unlocked when going for Dying God, another very strong vitality constellation. The other option is the Scales of Volcana, which trades the reliable damage over time from Revenant for a bit more sustain and upfront damage that will fix most energy regen issues a build might have. Finally, Dying God offers us a huge buff to our vitality damage and crit damage, a must-have for any vitality or chaos-based build. For skills and abilities, let's start with the must-haves for either build, starting with the Shaman class. Insect Swarm is obviously an amazing source of resistance reduction and damage, so at the very least you'll want it soft capped. Heart of the Wild will give us a massive 30% bonus to our health, so it's obviously going to get at least soft capped. Oakskin gives you a fairly nice chunk of armor and resistances, and while not nearly as important as Heart of the Wild, should at least get a few points. Wendigo Totem, while being a bit better in vitality based builds, will always offer a source of healing that does not rely on you hitting something, which is nice. There are some abilities that only really work for either the bleed focused or vitality focused builds, so we're calling them variable abilities. Storm Totem with a Corrupted Storm modifier is a massive source of damage for any vitality based build. If you're going for a bleed based build, specifically using the Wild Blood set, then you're definitely going to want Grasping Vines, typically with at least the first node soft cap for the flat damage and slow. Finally, Primal Bond is the best buff for any bleed based build, giving you a chunk of bonus damage to your bleed skills while also absorbing damage. In the Occultist tree, the must-have skills are Curse of Frailty and Vulnerability, as they offer up even more resistance reduction, which every young boy needs. If you're bleed-based, focus more on the base skill, but if you're vitality-based, make sure you cap Vulnerability. Blood of Dreeg and Aspect of the Guardian get at least soft cap and often get overcapped because it's just a good gosh darn skill. An on-demand heal and a boatload of useful stats should never be ignored. Finally, Bloody Pox tends to be a core part of either build, specifically the base node and the wasting node, so we can get the base damage as high as possible and also shred a ton of offensive ability. Variable skills in the Occultist tree include Sigil of Consumption, which is a great spell for a vitality-based Conjurer but offers little for its bleeding brethren, and Possession, an incredibly powerful buff for any vitality damage build due to its crazy high % damage absorption and vitality damage modifier. When leveling this build, I recommend using the Shaman Mastery and investing heavily into Insect Swarm early, keeping in mind that a rank 16 Insect Swarm can be quite energy hungry, so look out for early ectoplasms to curb your energy usage. Next, beeline it for Wendigo Totem, which will give us a consistent source of AoE damage while making us nigh on invincible in the early game. Then we're going to double back for Heart of the Wild and Oakskin to make us even tankier. Our next big get is Storm Totem, but make sure to get the Corrupted Storm modifier first before maxing it out. Finally, the Blood Pact node will scale up all of our damage considerably in the early game, but we will take out 11 of those points after we hit Elite as they become less efficient. After this, look to invest in the Occultist Mastery. Whether you go for vitality or bleed focused, the gameplay tends to be pretty similar. Drop a ton of dots into a crowd and run around as their health whittles away. Due to the hit and run style of your damage dealing spells and the plethora of soft CC and sustain at your disposal, this build thrives in situations where you can duck in and out of combat and kite. Where this build falls off, however, is dealing with larger single targets. In the description, I have linked a build created by none other than the legendary Mad Lee that is capable of clearing all content, including High Shattered Realms and Celestial bosses. However, I encourage you to play around with the tools and make your own build. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about the slight change of the video formula in the comments. If you liked the video or found it helpful, consider liking and subscribing for more weekly Grim Dawn content. If you want more, you can come catch me live at twitch.tv/armoredotter with a U. And if you do, here's a list of insults that will really hurt my feelings. Insult number 1. Hey Otter, you look like a guy who can't easily get erections. Funny and true. Number 2. Hey Otter, your teeth are kinda fucked up and I bet it's your fault. Yep, also true. Check and check. And number 3. Hey Otter, I bet nobody in your life actually loves you. Everything you perceive as affection is mild annoyance at best. You are simply an unavoidable fixture, an obstacle for people's happiness, and their lives would be so much better without you. Yeah. And as an added bonus, if you are one of the first people to use those insults during the stream, I'll give you my home address so you can swap me or steal my dog. And remember, this is a legally binding contract.